Welcome back to Richard Rules Vault, the JDM Vault, where revs hit red and legends are reborn. If it's got a Rising Sun badge, it's got a home here. Now unlocking the imports that change the game. Buckle up, gearheads. Today we're diving into the turbocharged time capsule known as the 1984 Nissan 300ZX Z31. Think of this Z as Japan's way of saying, we can do muscle too, just with a sushi roll twist to it. Here's a fun nugget from the history books. When the 1984 Nissan 300ZX Z31 first rolled into the showrooms, it wasn't just a Nissan. It was officially badged as the Datsun Nissan 300ZX. Talk about an identity crisis. It was like your buddy introducing himself at a party as Mike Steven because he hasn't quite committed to a new nickname yet. For the first year, the car carried both names as Nissan transitioned away from the beloved Datsun brand. By 1985, the dual badging experiment was over. Nissan retired the Datsun name worldwide, making the 300ZX one of the first global ambassadors for the new unified brand. For enthusiasts, it was a bittersweet moment. The Datsun name had built a reputation for fun, affordable sports cars, but Nissan wanted to project a more serious modern image. This change was more than just a new badge. It marked the Z car stepping out of its college years and putting on a suit. The Z31 wasn't just another Datsun, it was a symbol of Nissan flexing its muscles on the world stage. And like any good rebrand, it came with a little confusion at first. But history has shown the Z31 carried the Nissan flag with pride and performance. The 1984 Nissan 300ZX Z31 marked a bold new chapter for the Z car legacy. Designed by Kazumasa Takagi and his team, the Z31 took one look at the curvy 280ZX and said, time to hit the gym. Out went the softer lines and in came a sharper, sleeker, and far more aerodynamic body. It was as if the Z had swapped bell bottoms for a tailored suit, fitted, confident, and ready to impress. This was a third-generation Z car, and it came packing more than just good looks. Under the hood, Nissan traded in its trusty inline-six heritage for a lineup of modern, more powerful V6 engines. The change wasn't just about horsepower, it was about setting the stage for the future. Think of it as moving from a trusty flip phone to your first smartphone. The DNA was still there, but the capabilities were on a whole new level. When the car premiered in 1984, it carried the Datsun Nissan badge, a kind of transitional handshake between old identity and new ambition. But by 1985, Nissan made things official and retired the Datsun name worldwide. From that point forward, the Z31 wasn't just a car, it was Nissan's global calling card. Pop the hood on this turbocharged Z31, you'll find an engine lineup that was anything but boring. All versions came with electronic fuel injection and rear-wheel drive, so whether you were cruising downtown or carving up back roads, this Z was always in the mood for some tail-out fun. The menu of engines was diverse, like a sushi bar for gearheads. On one end, you had the RB20 DET, a turbocharged 2.0 liter straight 6 with dual overhead cams, exclusive to the 200ZR. Then there was the VG20ET, a turbocharged 2.0 liter V6 offered in Japanese market 200Z, ZS, and ZG models. But for most buyers, the real meat of the lineup came from the 3-liter V6s, and these were the stars of the show. The naturally aspirated VG30E delivered 160 horsepower and 174 foot-pounds of torque, plenty for smooth highway pulls and spirited weekend drives. But if you really wanted some wasabi with your sushi, the turbocharged VG30ET was the one to order. With 200 ponies and 227 foot-pounds of torque, it brought some serious punch, especially when the boost kicked in. Cast iron block, aluminum heads, and Nissan's clever engineering made the Z31's engines feel durable yet exciting, like a dependable friend who occasionally convinces you to do something a little reckless. When it came to moving power from engine to asphalt, the 84 Z31 gave buyers a solid spread of drivetrain choices, kind of like choosing between chopsticks, a fork, or just digging in with your hands. Each option had its own flavor, depending on how you wanted your Z to behave. For the purists, the base model came with a 5-speed FS5W71C manual. Simple, reliable, and engaging. It was mechanical equivalent of black coffee. Straightforward, no frills, but it gets the job done. If you stepped up to the turbo models, things got a little more interesting. The 5-speed FS5R90A and the beefier FS5R30A manuals were built to handle the extra torque from the boosted VG30ET. Think of them as gym rats, stronger gearboxes ready to take a punch without flinching. Not everyone wanted to row their own gears though. For the cruisers and commuters, Nissan offered the 4-speed Jatco E4N71B automatic as the standard slush box. Smooth and easygoing, it was a laid-back friend who was more about long drives and less about tire shredding antics. No matter which transmission you picked, all Z31s stayed true to their rear-wheel drive roots. That meant balanced handling, smoky burnouts if you tried, and the kind of driving dynamics that made the Z a true sports car. Underneath its sharper, sleeker kin, the 84 Z31 was still rooted in familiar territory. Its chassis was based on the outgoing Z280ZX, keeping the same wheelbase and suspension formula. McPherson struts up front and semi-trailer arms in the rear. But don't mistake this for hand-me-down leftovers. The Z31 took that recipe, added a pinch of spice, and baked up a car that handled and accelerated better than its predecessor. While the 280ZX sometimes felt like it was trying to waltz in hiking boots, the Z31 was more like a breakdancer in sneakers, quicker on its feet and far more responsive. And if you opted for a turbocharged model, Nissan added a clever party trick. 3-way electronically adjustable shock absorbers. With the push of a button, you could stiffen things up for spirited driving or soften them for a smoother cruise. Well, unless you had the Shiro Special, lower trim 200Z or the 200ZR. Those models skipped the gadgetry and kept things simple. Another neat perk? The Z31 was built for both left-hand and right-hand drive markets, proving Nissan's global ambitions. Whether you drove on the left side of the road in Tokyo or the right side in LA, the Z31 was ready to play. Step inside the Z31, you'd quickly realize Nissan wasn't just trying to build a sports car, it was trying to build a spaceship. One of the quirkiest features was the voice warning system, which used a pre-recorded voice box, the radio, and the driver's door speaker to mute your tunes and politely nag you. Leave the lights on? Door ajar? Parking brake still up? Low fuel? The Z31 will let you know in no uncertain terms. Basically the world's first backseat driver built into your car. By 1987, though, the novelty wore off and Nissan retired the system. But the tech didn't stop there. The Z31 also offered a body sonic audio system which let you feel the bass through speakers embedded in the front seats. Imagine your mixtape rumbling your spine like strapping a subwoofer to your back, but in a good way. Depending on trim, you got analog gauges with traditional stereo and climate controls, or you could spec an optional digital wonderland. That meant a digital gauge cluster, a stereo with its own equalizer, and even a fully digital climate control system. In short, the Z31's interior was part car, part arcade, equal measures of driving thrill and 1980s tech wizardry. Out back, the 84 300ZX packed the trusty Nissan R200 Differential, a unit so tough it became a go-to for the countless Nissan and Infiniti performance cars. Think of it as the unsung hero of the drivetrain, quietly taking the abuse of hard launches, turbo torque, and the occasional parking lot donut without complaining. While the flashy tech and digital gauges got all the attention, the R200 was the workhorse keeping everything hooked up. It wasn't glamorous, but like duct tape, it held the fun together when things got a little sideways. The 84 Z31 wasn't just about what was under the hood, it had the proportions to match its sporty ambitions. Measuring 173.6 inches long, it struck a balance between compact agility and grand touring presence. At 67.9 inches wide, it planted itself firmly on the ground without being so bulky that you'd fear narrow parking spots. Its height? A sleek 49.6 inches. That's lower than most kitchen counters, meaning you practically had to fold yourself in like origami to slide behind the wheel. But once inside, you felt like part of the machine. With a 91.3-inch wheelbase, the Z31 carried itself with stability while still being short enough to whip through corners like a caffeinated squirrel. Curb weight ranged between 2,888 and 3,280 pounds, depending on trim and other options. Light enough to stay sprightly, heavy enough to feel solid on the highway. It was the Goldilocks of sports car weight classes. Altogether, these dimensions gave the Z31 the personality of a middleweight boxer, quick on its feet, low to the ground, and built with just enough muscle to pack a punch. Not oversized, not overwhelming, just the right fit for a sports car that wanted to play on both the boulevard and the back roads. Like any good sports car, the '84 Z31 had its fair share of strengths and weaknesses, kind of like a superhero with killer powers but a questionable taste in tights. On the strength side, the Z31 had plenty going for it. The new V6 engines brought more torque and reliability, while the turbocharged VG30 ET delivered that kick-in-the-pants boost that made you grin like a kid on a roller coaster. The rear-wheel drive layout kept handling engaged, and the chassis improvements over the 280ZX meant that this car could actually hustle when asked. Add in futuristic tech like the digital dash and the quirky voice warning system, and you had a machine that looked and felt ahead of its time. But not everything was sunshine and sushi rolls. The Z31's semi-trailing arm suspension, while improved, could get twitchy if you push too hard, like a cat that's fine with petting until suddenly it's not. The digital gadgets, thought cool in the 80s, sometimes aged about as gracefully as floppy disks. And with curb weights creeping over 3,000 pounds, the Z31 wasn't exactly the featherweight fighter some enthusiasts wanted. Still, when you weighed it all out, the Z31's charm and capability easily outweighed its quirks, cementing it as a true JDM legend. The 1984 Nissan 300ZX Z31 was more than just a car. It was a bold statement from Nissan, showing the world that Japan could blend muscle, tech, and style into one sleek package. From its futuristic digital dash to the turbocharged VG30 ET that could shove you back in your seat, the Z31 was equal parts spaceship and street fighter. Sure, it had quirks, like a suspension that sometimes acted like a caffeinated gymnast and a voice warning system that doubled as your electronic nagging companion, but those only added to its character. This was a car that straddled eras, a link between the analog simplicity of the 70s Z cars and the high-tech playground of the 90s. It wasn't perfect, but perfection is overrated anyway. What matters is personality, and the Z31 had that in spades. Now here's the question for you. If you had the keys to a mint-condition 300ZX, would you keep it in stock for nostalgia's sake, or would you build it into a turbocharged, track-ready monster? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Retro Wheels Vault family. And as always, keep it boosted, keep it classic.